Hello, in today's video, I would like to talk about some important points in chapter 15, unemployment. So one of the most important things in this chapter is to compute the unemployment rate and labor participation rate, right? And the Bureau of Labor Statistics divide the adult population actually into two big categories. So it divides the adult population into labor force and not in the labor force. And within this labor force category, it also divides populations into two subcategories, such as employed and unemployed. Okay. Therefore, based on the labor force statistics, we can compute the unemployment rate. So unemployment rate always abbreviated as U rate, right? We also talk this in our chapter slides. So U rate is always equal to unemployed numbers in unemployed divide labor force and then times 100%. For the labor force participation rate, it will equal to the labor force divide adult population and then times 100%. One thing I want to emphasize, some students might feel confused about how to distinguish unemployed and not in the labor force. So unemployed are the person who are not in job, but they are still active to search for a job. So for example, these days, maybe because of the COVID-19, a lot of people lose their job, but they're still active in job search. Therefore, they were counted in unemployed. However, for not in the labor force, they are the person who not working. However, they are also not active in job search. So one of the example in not in the labor force would be the stay-home mom. So stay-home mom at home, they take care of the whole family. They are not in the labor market, right? And at the same time, they are not active to find a job. So stay-home mom would be an example of the people who are not in the labor force. Then I would like to talk about two types of unemployment. So when we talk about unemployment, we would like to refer the unemployment in the short run and the unemployment in the long run. So the unemployment in the short run, it has a special name, which is cyclical unemployment. So this cyclical unemployment is always related to business cycle, okay? Business cycle means economy always fluctuates. Sometimes it might prosper. Sometimes the economy might go downturns, right? So this cyclical unemployment is always fluctuated as the business cycles. And another unemployment will be happened in the long run, which is the natural unemployment. So natural unemployment happens even when the market is doing well, there is always some unemployment. So this natural unemployment exists in every economics. No matter how well your economy is, there is always some unemployment. And for the natural unemployment, this natural unemployment is the major topic in chapter 15. Because in chapter 15, we still talk about unemployment in the long run. And in the natural unemployment, including two subcategories, okay? We have the frictional unemployment and structural unemployment. So here we have frictional unemployment and structural unemployment. For the frictional unemployment, it happens when workers will spend time to search for a job that will best satisfy their skills and taste. Okay? And this is very obvious in every economy. For structural unemployment, it occurs when there are fewer jobs than workers, which means in the labor markets, there are more supply of the labor force than demand of the labor force, which means now the labor market has surplus labor force, okay? So for frictional unemployment, in our textbook, it also talk about two reasons, okay? One is from job search. So workers will always try to search for a job that probably mostly satisfy their needs, their skills, right? So for example, if you graduated in the future and then you are majoring in computer science, you probably want to find some jobs that are related to your major, right? So job search happens when workers will try to find a job that most satisfy their majors, their taste, their skills. And there is another reason will result in frictional unemployment, which is sectoral changes, okay? Sectoral shifts. So for example, nowadays probably people will not use their traditional the traditional cell phones, right? We might use their smartphones. So the people who work in the traditional cell phones, they probably will lose their job. So this is because of their innovations in the industries. For the structural unemployment, it always occurs when there are not enough jobs to go around. So for example, this is the labor markets. I will put L here represents for labor force, okay? And then I will put W here represents for the wage. So this is the demand curve of the labor force, and this is the supply curve of labor force. Originally, we can find out the equilibrium points, right? So here we can find out the equilibrium wage and equilibrium labor force. However, if now the market wage is above this equilibrium wage, okay? So probably this will be the current wage. I put C here to represent for the current wage. And then you can notice in the current wage, it will result in lower demand, because now the wage increase, the cost of the hiring workers increase. Firms and corporations, they just want to hire those labor force. However, as the wage increase, there is more individuals join the labor markets. Therefore, it will create a surplus. You can notice here, labor supply larger than labor demand, which will result in the surplus, right? And the surplus in labor market will be the unemployment, right? So this structural unemployment always occurs when wages is above the equilibrium wages. And there are three reasons resulting in structural unemployment. The first one is the minimum wage law, okay? So in chapter 6, we notice in order to protect the least skilled workers or unexperienced workers, government sometimes will put the minimum wages, right? To regulate, okay, this will be the lowest wage you can pay for the workers. So minimum wages sometimes will make the will make the current wage levels higher than the equilibrium wage levels for the least skilled workers or unexperienced workers, and which will result in structural unemployment for the least skilled or unexperienced workers. And the second reason would be the unions, okay? So for unions, it always has the power to negotiate for higher wages or higher benefits for the person who joined the union, right? So for example, in LBCC, we also have the Faculty Association, which is the union for faculties. And then this union can help the faculties to negotiate for higher wages or better working conditions. And that will also evaluate their wages, the current wages, higher than the equilibrium wages. And then the third reason will result in structural unemployment, which comes from efficiency wages. So those efficiency wages were provided by firms and corporations in order to encourage their workers to put more efforts, and then also to reduce their rotation rate, right? The turnover rate. So those are the three reasons will result in structural unemployment. Okay, so generally speaking, unemployment can divide it into two parts, either from frictional unemployment or structural unemployment. And for frictional unemployment, we have two major reasons. One is from the job search and another is from sectoral shift. And from structural unemployment, there are 3 reasons resulting in structural unemployment. Comes from minimum wages law, unions, and efficiency wages.